This is our game Wilderness Adventure that we made. It's an RPG, and you are trekking through the wilderness, and you have to make a series of decisions to see if you can live or if you die. So we start the game, and there's an input DLG statement that asks for your name. So I'll put my name in, and this is stored in the variable name for later in the game, where if someone dies or if they win, we'll use an fprintf statement to use their name and tell them what happened. So if I choose 1 on this, which would be yes, it goes to an if-else statement. And that statement then directs us to a menu. And in this menu, we have 2 choices, and there's also a nested if statement, as you can see in this area. There's a couple of them. We have another menu, and we have the 2 bars indicating a compound condition that is or. So if I choose that I hate the water, it'll pop up. It'll go to right here where it asks me how many times I run per week. And as you see here, if I choose option 1 or 2, it will tell me that I died, because basically we meant that you're out of shape, which isn't necessarily true, but so I'll choose 3 so that we don't die. And then at this point, another menu will pop up asking what kind of shoes you're wearing, because you're on a mountain, so you're going to need good shoes. And in this case, if you choose sneakers or slippers, you don't make it up the mountain and you die. And here we have an if, else statement. So choose the hiking boots, because the hiking boots will get you up the mountain.
Going back to the beginning, as we run it again, as we lived in the past trial, we have the input DLG again, and we input a name that is saved. It says welcome to Wilderness Adventure, and are you afraid of the dark? We say yes. No, sorry, no. Now it displays that we are in a cave, and we have 2 options here through the menu that asks through a menu that asks that what would you use to start a fire. 2 sticks or either flint from the cave. The only way to live is to use the flint from the cave, or else you can't start the fire and the bats got you. So we use the flint from the cave, and now it asks how high can you jump in inches, and we have to input a certain amount, and using this else if statement, if else if statement, with the compound condition, and we have the input statement asking us how much we can jump. So if we input anything larger than 40, we can live. So let's put 45. And now it says that you make it out of the cave without a scratch, and once you get out, you are surprised to see a 600-pound grizzly bear. 2 options in the menu are you freeze out of fear, you think quickly, and climb a tree to safety. And we choose the second option, 2, and then it says congratulations, Omar, you win.
So we'll go through the game again, and at this point, we're going to go through by the river again in the forest. So we'll say that we're afraid of the dark, and that'll bring us through. And if we say call me a fish, that is essentially saying that we are very good at swimming. So now it asks how long we can hold our breath, and we'll say more than 30 seconds, and that will bring us down into this area, and we use the switch statement here to deal with the response. So if we choose the more than 30 seconds, that represents a 2. So now it knows that we input the 2, and it tells us that we were able to make it and we see a helicopter. Now we have the choice of how we want to try and signal that helicopter. And if you choose the sound, it doesn't work because the helicopter's loud and they won't hear you. But if you choose the mirror, it tells you you did a good job and they got you out of there. And down here, if we go back to being in the cave, this is where we used a simple if statement with nothing else on it. Throughout the game, we used a mixture of the input statements and the display statements and the fprintf statements. We used the display statements in easier spots where we were just making a simple statement, and when we wanted to make something more personal, we'd use the fprintf, like in here, so we could have it use the variable name that we saved, where you input your name at the beginning of the game, and it makes it a little bit more personal. It's not anything too fancy, but just a nice little touch. And we also put in pauses throughout the game in some spots, so you have a couple seconds before a menu just pops up in your face. Helps to slow the game down a little bit, make it a little bit more fun to play. In this area of the game, we used an input statement to make it more interactive so that it wasn't just a menu where you click some choices. At this part, you have to actually input numbers. And as you can see here, we have some instances where you use the double equal sign to denote that that variable is equivalent to 2, so it knows to use that as a value for another action later. In this area, since we gave the user has to actually input numbers, and we wanted ranges where it would do different things. So here you can see this is talking about if h is less than 20, less than or equal to, and we used our compound condition to set up a middle range where we have a low right here and a high bound, and that worked pretty well because it made it just more interesting. It was cooler than just saying that you can choose one of these three and you might die.
So that was a summary of the wilderness adventure game that we made with all the parts that were supposed to be included in it, and yeah.